It is summer here in the United States. The sun is hot. And a conversation around sunscreen, a lot of people have contacted us to say, can you do a deep dive into sunscreen? Well, here's what the media will tell you on sunscreen. Take a look.
Whether you're climbing a mountain, skiing the slopes, or laying by the pool, sunscreen is a must when out in the sun.
Dermatologists and healthcare experts have long touted sunscreen as an effective way to prevent sun damage.
We've been told for years now that applying sunscreen early, liberally, and often is our best protection against cancer-causing UV rays from the sun.
Sunscreen. This is my personal own. This is going to be your best friend, and medical experts want to make sure that you are layering this on every single day.
The thing that's unique about skin cancer, it's so common, but it's also so preventable. We know that about 90% of skin cancers are associated with sun exposure.
Skin cancer is, still remains the most prevalent and prominent cancer in America. There'll be over 5 million cases of skin cancer that's going to be diagnosed.
It's the #1 cancer in the U.S. 1 in 5 Americans will be diagnosed with skin cancer at some point in their lifetime.
Wow.
Incredibly common.
Which is why prevention is so necessary.
Exactly. And sunscreen is one of the best ways to do that.
We know that melanoma is most common in men, and they actually have the highest mortality rate. It's thought perhaps men aren't as good about wearing sunscreen.
There's no such thing as a safe tan. That's a huge mistake.
All right. Well, I mean, look, that's I'll be honest. Like, I can't remember the last time I wore sunscreen. I just personally, there's been a red flag from the beginning. I was like, let me get this straight. The source of all life is my enemy. It sounds like a religion that would be pushed by vampires. I wear long shirts. I wear baseball caps. I don't think it's good to scorch yourself. But this has never made sense to me, just packing things into your pores, heating them up, having them, go. I just can't imagine anything natural enough that I want to mess with it. But, where's the science going on this?
Yeah, and in this conversation, I'll also frame this. It's not black and white like some of the stuff we covered. There is a lot of nuance in here, and there's a lot of personal decision making to be had from every individual. This is true informed consent, and it's just sunscreen, but it's very important. So in 2019, the FDA, HHS, put this in the Federal Register regarding the FDA, and it said this. This is the actual Federal Register at that time. Department of Health and Human Services, Food and Drug Administration, products over-the-counter human use, the agency, Food and Drug Administration. It's a proposed rule. So it says this proposed rule describes the conditions under which FDA proposes that over-the-counter sunscreen monograph products are generally recognized as safe and effective and not misbranded. It is being published as part of an ongoing review of over-the-counter drug products conducted by the FDA. So what they're doing is in 2019, they're saying, look, we're going to do a review of basically the sunscreen. Now that review to this day has not been completed. So when we're talking about safe and effective, there's a big question mark here. Is it really safe? It reminds me a little bit of fluoride. It's like we knew it was, everyone told it was safe, but the EPA said at some point they're going to redo that science. We're still waiting for them, so it's up in the air. That's kind of where we're at with sunscreen. But in the meantime, let's look at the science. So in 2020, we have the JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association. They looked at this. This was, ironically, an FDA-funded study. They looked at the effect of sunscreen application on plasma concentration with their active ingredients. This was a really great trial, randomized clinical trial. It said in this study, conducted in a clinical pharmacology unit and examining sunscreen application among healthy participants, all 6 of the tested active ingredients administered in 4 different sunscreen formulations were systemically absorbed and had plasma concentrations, that's in your blood, by the way, that surpass the FDA threshold for potentially waiving some of the additional safety studies for sunscreens. So they're saying, well, the FDA, that bottom line there is saying, well, clearly if it doesn't pass this threshold, we don't have to do further safety studies. And this study is saying basically all of them, for the most part, are going into, and they're surpassing the plasma concentrations. And it wasn't just there. It happened quickly, by the way, within 24 hours, but it stayed for days. Wow. That plasma concentration was elevated for days. So the sunscreen systemically absorbs into your entire system through your bloodstream. And that's clearly a problem because it doesn't just stay on the skin, doesn't evaporate. The Environmental Working Group did a really great article looking at this. I recommend everyone check this article out, The Trouble with Ingredients in Sunscreen. And it gives you a handy graph here you can go to, and you can see all the ingredients on the left side. These are the active ingredients. And then there we just covered the FDA 2019 proposed classification as safe and effective. You can see a lot of those are not they've not been done yet. They can't say they're safe and effective, except the last two, which are mineral. We have titanium dioxide and zinc oxide. We'll talk about those in a second. And then you go to the next column, absorbed through the skin. Yes, 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 yes. Every one of those is absorbed through the skin, except the mineral versions of those. But then here becomes a big problem. Evidence of hormone disruption. You can see here, we have some of those with strong evidence of hormone disruption. That's not a good thing. And then also skin allergies, there's evidence of those. Those are concerns. And that's the big issue. So now when it comes to these active ingredients, these are chemicals, except for those last two, those are mineral-based, zinc and titanium dioxide. The zinc and the titanium dioxide do not absorb in your skin. The FDA just recently, just this month, approved another chemical for sunscreen. However, they approved it and it actually had some foresight here. This is a chemical like our food. It's been approved in Europe, but not in the United States. And similarly, there's a lot of chemicals in sunscreen that are banned in Europe that we allow in the United States. But this, FDA expands sunscreen options for the first time in 20 years. And this is basically an ingredient in here that it doesn't absorb into your body as easily as the rest of the chemicals. So it has a larger molecular weight, from my understanding. So it sits on the top of the skin. You're not going to have an issue with that. So that's a good sign the FDA is actually acknowledging the systemic absorption of sunscreen. And the issues, because there are issues. We already know there's lots of evidence here. Again, the Environmental Working Group shows that graph, and it's the hormone disruption, allergies at the very least. So that's a concern for people. So with that information, there's one of the conversations that I think people should think about when they're thinking about sunscreen. But now let's go into some of the information about, like you said, the sun. You mentioned that at the top of the segment here. So here's a 2013 study, and this was a pretty interesting study. It says, is prevention of cancer by sun exposure more than just the effect of vitamin D? A systemic review of the epidemiological studies. And that said here, we found that almost all epidemiological studies suggest that chronic, not intermittent sun exposure is associated with a reduced risk of colorectal, breast, prostate cancer, and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So that's a big conversation, is the cancers when it comes to sun exposure. Obviously, a lot of those are skin cancers, but this study is saying, hey, on the rest of the cancers, it looks like there might be something going on with the sun other than vitamin D that is helping people stave off these cancers. Here's another one. Avoidance of sun exposure is a risk factor for all-cause mortality, results from a melanoma in southern Sweden cohort. So they looked at thousands of people in Sweden. They said this is a fascinating conclusion. We found that all-cause mortality was inversely related to sun exposure habits. So inversely related, note that. The mortality rate amongst avoiders of sun exposure was approximately twofold higher compared with the highest sun exposure group, resulting in excess mortality with a population attributable risk of 3%. Conclusion, the results of this study provide observational evidence that avoiding sun exposure is a risk factor for all-cause mortality.
I mean, it really seems obvious, doesn't it, Jeffrey? If there was one thing I think we really learned during COVID, it was how important vitamin D is. I really hadn't, contemplated it, but then when they started showing that if you had certain vitamin D levels, you would not be hospitalized. No one died if they had certain vitamin D levels, detectable in their body. We now realize this is the building blocks of your immune system. And we forget that immune systems are what deal with cancer. It's the immune system that decides whether that foreign object or, chemical or toxin should be attacked and pushed out of the body. So to me, it just goes without saying, the only natural way, as I understand it, really, to get vitamin D, which is like a hormone, is your skin's interaction with the sun. Otherwise, we're taking these supplements. It just seems crazy that we avoid the natural way we're designed to take on one of the critical vitamins in our bodies, and then we start, supplementing it with bottled, and God knows where that comes from and all of those issues. I don't know. This seems like a no-brainer in many ways, and it's one of those things where science just took us way off track. We allowed a whole industry to just pack crap into our pores without thinking about it. Anyway, it's great that we're starting to get some mainstream reality checks going on here.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a study that just came out earlier this year too, and it goes into what you were just saying. This is a risk-benefit balance, and that's really what people have to decide for themselves. Risk-benefit balance of habitual ultraviolet exposure for cardiovascular cardiovascular cancer and skin cancer mortality. And they concluded this: in this large UK cohort, higher habitual UV exposure quantified by the Sunbeam Index was associated with lower all-cause cardiovascular and non-skin cancer mortality, alongside smaller proportional increases in melanoma and other skin cancer mortality. Overall, these findings challenge the simplistic view that sunlight is primarily a skin carcinogen whose benefits can be replaced by vitamin D tablets, and instead supports a more balanced perspective in which UV exposure contributes meaningfully and not fully substitutable to the prevention of cardiovascular disease and other major cancers. So that's a major conversation there. And, to be responsible in our reporting here, clearly the sun does have effects on skin cancers. And there's several types of skin cancers. There's squamous cell carcinomas, there's basal cell carcinomas. Those, you catch them early, there's no big deal. There's a high survivability rate on those. They're really common. But then there's melanoma. Now, melanoma, we'll go to the American Cancer Society on this. And these are the statistics for melanoma. This is the one you really got to watch out for. Obviously got to be diligent, watch out for all of them. But this one here, cancer of melanoma, cancer of the skin, is by far the most common of all cancers in the United States. Melanoma accounts for only about 1% of skin cancers, but causes the largest majority of skin cancer deaths. So when they say catch-all term, skin cancer deaths, and they try to lump all skin cancers in there, that's not accurate. Melanoma is the one that accounts for it all. And this is so the dermatologists out there that have been wringing their fist at my segment, I'm going to give them a little thumbs up here and attribute this chart. This is the A, B, C, D, and E's of melanoma. So you do want to watch out for this. And this is just a quick chart here. Is it a mole or is it melanoma? Regular checks to a dermatologist. They can take care of these things, especially the squamous or basal cell carcinomas. Skin tags, they can just pop those off before any issues happen. The melanomas, obviously, you want to get on top of that faster. But this is one of the issues. However, again, it's not a simple relationship here. It's very nuanced. It's not more sun equals more melanoma. In fact, there's studies out there, for time's sake, we're not going to go into all the studies, but showing that people with high skin exposure to the sun through their employment have lower melanoma rates than people that work in offices. So there's a lot of science that we don't understand about sun exposure, but hopefully this can give people an idea of maybe where to start. Obviously, burning is bad. So anything, you don't want to just go out there and burn because you want the sun exposure. That's shown across the board to be really not a good thing.
We were all talking about, as we were working on this segment, do sunglasses have an effect? I look forward, we're going to do some research into that. I know some people are saying don't wear sunglasses. It's telling your skin you're in the dark when you're not. Very interesting. All of this, we're starting to wake up and I think look at things in a new way, which is great. It's a part of what the HighWire is doing. It's what you're doing. And I think we're forcing the mainstream narrative to shift.